Good evening, everyone. I hope everyone is well. Thank you so much for joining me. This is the very first time that I've done a live stream in about 10 months, so forgive me if there are any technical difficulties. But on the subject of that, first of all, if you can see me and hear me, can you just let us know in the comments if everything's running okay? Because it has been a while, but I'm sure I've done a couple of tests, so hopefully this is all going to be fine. But this is going to be an interesting one, this one. As you can see from the title, we've got a very special guest joining us today, talking about something very different for especially me, but also for Hannah as well. So recently, as some of you may know, I became a dad recently. George was born 4 weeks ago, and Hannah has had a little boy around 6 months ago. And tonight's episode is going to be very different. We're both going to be sharing each other's stories about becoming parents and about that work-life balance. Now, for those of you that don't know Hannah, Hannah is a professional photographer and also a European ambassador for Sony, the first female in the UK, by the way, and is a speaker and educator for Pro Photo as well. But one of my favourite facts about Hannah that I read up is when she entered into the record books with the British Institute of Professional Photography for being one. I could see her in the background smiling, for being one of the youngest members to qualify within the history of the institute at the tender age of 19. Now that is an impressive testimonial to have on your website. Now, the last time Hannah and I worked together or collaborated together, if you haven't seen it already, back in 2020 during lockdown, Hannah and I did a collaboration where we did a social distancing photo shoot with herself and a few other photographers, where I invited Hannah to take a photograph of me with the power of Zoom and controlling my camera, just something a bit different. So for those of you that didn't see that video, I'm going to play a little preview for you now, and then we're going to have Hannah on. So let me just see if this will play. And here she is now. Hey Hannah, how you doing?
Hey Tommy, oh my gosh, you know what that is? Doesn't that feel like a lifetime ago that we did that? That
It
social
feels
distancing shoot. I feel like that was forever ago.
it feels so long ago. Well, we were just speaking right before we went live. When we actually haven't seen each other face to face since 2019. It feels so long ago.
It does, it does. It's only when you sort of say it like that, you realise just how much these few years have really sucked in that respect, you know? It's really been, it's been such a shame. It's been horrible.
I
But,
know, right? It's really
oh.
been horrible, but alas, we've had big life changes, right? In that
Yeah, I
time,
mean, to be fair, I think we used the time pretty wisely,
I
Tommy. You know,
think
just produced a couple of humans, you know, like, yeah, as you're doing that. It's
just
been great.
casually.
Yeah, exactly. I did want to just mention as well that the video you just did. I know. I don't think. I think a few people were saying the audio wasn't playing and stuff when you just played that clip right now. But anybody that is watching maybe that hasn't seen that video, you should totally check it out. It was such a good idea, Tommy. I just thought that was utter genius. So what a brilliant idea, and you executed it so well. I still think that's one of the most genius things ever. It was such a good idea, and it was so much fun. So you should be really proud of that one. That was
Oh,
great.
thank you. Well, thank you for taking part. It was so much fun. I think my favourite quote in there was when you said what's the key to being a great portrait photographer? I don't know, but if you have fun, if you want fun shots, just sing it, people. I think that's great.
Is that what I said? Oh my god.
That is what you said. So apologies that you couldn't hear it, but I'll try and grab a link, and I can put it in the chat. But you can find it also on my YouTube if you are watching it there. But yeah, that was one thing you said during that thing. But it's so true. You just got to make yourself stupid to make the client feel a little bit more at ease, right? If they've not been used under the camera. But yeah. I did promise myself this wouldn't be gear focused. It wouldn't be anything like that, because I want this to be a little bit different, and obviously to talk about more about kind of the work-life balance. I obviously want to still kind of bring it back to photography, but I do remember the first week of having George. It was an absolute emotional roller coaster, and wanted to ask you what it was like when you had Joel. So first of all, Joel was born September, right? So is he 6 months old?
It's going to be 8 months next week.
8 months, goodness me.
I know. Oh, what happened? Which I know that probably there's loads of people that are going to be watching and saying like, yeah, mine are like 18 and 24 and it goes just as fast. But yeah, it's gone so quickly, and you're right. I mean, it was a strange one really, because you know, when people say to you, they're like, oh, when you have a child, you're going to feel this love and this overwhelming sense of, you know, everything else. And I just thought, and I was so worried. A part of me was quite worried that, what if I don't? Like, some people don't. I had spoken to a couple of people and they had said, well, you know, I didn't get that or whatever. And so I didn't really know where to put my head. I was like, if am I going to feel? I don't really know, you know, how this is going to be, and what if I don't feel that, and you know, so I just didn't really know what to do, and then and then it happened, and I was like, okay, this is what everyone's talking about, you know, like it just was like, all right, okay, that's it, and yeah, I mean, I wasn't ready. I'm still not ready for just how much you can love a human, and like how they like it's kind of, it's feral, isn't it? The things that you would do for them, it's just unbelievable. And I'm just like, wow, the things that I would do for him, it's just unbelievable.
Well, I remember when you wished me congratulations when George was born, and one of the messages that stick out when you DM'd me on Instagram was your life's going to change. No, sorry, you said nothing else matters now.
Yeah,
and it's so true, right?
I felt, right. It was just that's the only way I could really describe it, is because I don't know. I think it was a strange one. It wasn't like I did know that I wanted children. But, I mean, it took me long enough to find the right person to, I suppose, because you don't really feel like you want them until you're with the right person. And, you know, like Knut and I have met very late in life compared to most people. So then kind of, but even then you're kind of like, am I going to be an okay parent? Am I going to enjoy this? How am I going to cope? How am I going to deal with this? And it's so weird. It shocked me so much how much I just love looking after him, being a mum, being a parent. I just, you know, and everything else that I was really focused on before is secondary. I'm just like, you know what, I don't really care. That can wait. Or, you know, like it's like,
yeah, it really does put things into perspective. It really did, and I've certainly felt that in only the 4 weeks. But you're so right, because you think the worries I had before, little things like worrying about there's a plane going overhead. I don't know if that's coming through. Yeah, it's so hot in here. I've had to crack the door. Apologies. Where was I? Yeah. The silly things that I would worry about, like a shoot coming up, and I'm going to try a new lighting set. Like, I'm worrying about that, and I think, why am I worrying about that in hindsight? Like it's and lots of other things as well. But yeah, you're so right. It's just nothing really tops it, does it? It's
not to that degree. I mean, of course you're still, and those worries that you have, of course, they're completely justified still. And you know, I remember I did something for Wex, and I hadn't been on camera for about a year, and I was suddenly, and it was one of those where we had to get it all filmed in a few hours, and I just thought, what if I can't do things in one take anymore? What if I can't do this? You know, like all of that came flooding back. But at the end of the day, I was just like, well, I just got to do my best and hope for the best. But it doesn't really matter, does it? You know,
Yeah.
like there's other things that are far more important. So it just shifts. I think it shifts your priorities. Yeah, that's the thing. You think actually the amount of weight I was giving that before probably doesn't require that.
Well, but I think that's an attribute you've kind of always had even before Joel, Hannah, and that's one of the things we all love about you is that you have that kind of, oh, you know, if a mistake happens, it happens. Like you've even spoke about it even during live talks. You know, if a mistake happens on stage, it happens on stage. You just got to roll with it, and I do love. That's what we all love about you.
That's so kind. That's a very polite way of you saying that I'm an idiot, Tommy, and I love
No,
that.
no,
That's very
not
sweet of you. No, I'm the first one to admit that. That's fine. No, no, you're right. I mean, I think maybe it comes from the fact that when I first started my business, I was so young that I sort of felt like I had to act really professionally and you know had a point to prove almost. And as I've got older and you know you get more comfortable in your own skin, I've realised that the more relaxed I am, the more relaxed the people around me are. And so
true.
it's like, what was I doing? I was probably, you know, making everybody else feel uptight by me trying to be so professional and say this. You know, I fall over things, I drop things. I'm a human being, and I think one of the things is that I've always said that if you watch a video of me, if you see me on live talk, or if you bump into me on the street, you'll get the same me. There's no different, right?
Yeah.
And I don't suddenly change.
No.
I might become a little bit more grumpy when I'm tired and I'm not in front of people, but most of the time I'm honest about that too. So, you know, I think honesty of, you know, how we are is the best way.
Oh, 100%. 100%. When George was born, that moment you talk about that, like, will I have that feeling? Will I have that feeling because that love might be there? It's interesting because I was so the prep that I had done. So I listened to all sorts of audiobooks and read loads of books, which obviously nothing ever quite prepares you for. But it was funny. I was listening to an audiobook, How to Become a Dad, How to Be a Dad. And they did say that, saying you may not feel it, but it might be something that grows over time. But in terms of prep, like, what did you do during your pregnancy? Like, did you look for and research in audiobooks or speak to people? What kind of was your prep to kind of somewhat prepare yourself, if you like?
Zero, Tommy. No, I probably did the opposite to you. In that, well, no, I had friends. I mean, I've got friends that have got babies, and you know, that in my job, I've been around babies for so long. Of course, it's completely different. So I've heard every kind of horror story under the sun, and that kind of really made me think, well, each person has their own experience. It's like you can't compare childbirth. How can anyone compare childbirth? Because all our bodies are formed differently. Our pain thresholds are different. Our babies are going to be different. Like, you can't. One person's experience is not. It's not worth listening to everyone else's version and account of that, because half of it probably won't apply to you anyway. So I was like, I thought quite early on, I'm going to listen, but you know, it's going to go over my head at the same time. To a degree, until I found out I was having a C-section, because then that sort of changed things, because that's obviously a controlled procedure, and there's recovery and things that are kind of standard versus childbirth, which is, you know, just going to do what it's going to do. I mean, yes, I did read a couple of books. I mean, I say read a couple of books. I sort of picked up bits here and there, but I mean, really, I just thought, and actually, so many people said to me, ignore all the advice that you're going to be, you know, all that kind of unsolicited advice you're going to get, just ignore it all. And so I thought, do you know what? I mean, I don't know. There's some things. We did an NCT class, which was rubbish. It was not, I mean, sorry, I shouldn't say that, should I?
No, it's fine.
Anyway,
was yours in person or did you do it online?
We did it on Zoom, so that didn't help the scenario anyway. But I think our group was just unlucky. But the good thing about it is that all of us remained friends, and that's pretty much why we did it. So having the support of the girls and, you know, and their partners was really helpful. The actual content itself and the way it was delivered was less than helpful. But it kind of, you realise you've just got to learn to a degree. You've got to learn on the job because, again, one person's giving you an advice based on their child and their baby, and then, like my friends have said, they're like, well, this baby was completely different to that baby, and then you think you've got it sorted, and then they change, and then this happens, and then that happens, and then what's the point in really having a plan? So
yeah.
it's kind of how it's been.
And that was a piece of advice I got as well, was ignore the advice you're going to get, because for that reason, your journey is so different, so unique. It's not gonna pan out the same. And like you say, you can take the advice, but you can choose whether to keep it or you can just throw it away. Because we certainly had advice from multiple midwives would give us advice, and they would all be a bit conflicting. And you think,
oh gosh,
oh god,
because I mean, we had the same thing. I mean, right. You say it's hot in here, right? I mean, it's hot in our room too. Our bedroom, I was been upstairs since we've got a thermometer in there. Only since the baby's born. We wouldn't have had one otherwise. But it is roasting out there, right? You kind of, that's what you do, right? And I've always been a bit worried about overheating, or like mostly overheating. I remember it was a warm day. It was a September day, but it was really warm in the hospital. And I said to the paediatrician, like, what do I dress him in? He said, well, it's 21 degrees in here, so you need a vest and a baby coat and nothing else. I was like, right. I said, not any, no, black, and he was like, nothing else, like no water, like if this is warm. I was like, okay, so that's kind of stuck with me. But then you'd come in, and then all of a sudden the midwives are kind of like tucking them up in blankets and putting hats on him and putting all things around, and I'm like, oh, what? And then another one would come in and strip them all off, and you're like, hang on, I don't know who I'm supposed to be listening to here. So I went with a paediatrician, but yeah, it's just as you say, all the difference in even how the midwives tell you what to do and what not to do. You're like, I don't know what. How do I do this?
Even the midwives were conflicting as well. So so you're right. You really do have to take everything you're told with a pinch of salt, because it is so unique and so different. Your journey is so different. So, but that was interesting. Was the C-section, was it planned or was it emergency? Sorry.
No, it was planned. So he was breech. So he was upside down. I sort of thought it was quite early on. I felt it one morning. I sort of woke up and I thought, that feels different. Pretty much my whole pregnancy, his massive head was under my ribs. It's really funny because even when he falls asleep now and I'm holding him, he twists his head sideways and he's almost in the same position that he was in my belly. I don't know, it's like whether he's just, I don't know, it might just be how he's comfortable. But yeah, they did offer me, they did offer to turn him. So there's a procedure that I can't even remember what it's called now.
Oh, it's got a funny name, isn't it?
I can't remember what it's called. See, it all goes out my head. But anyway, there was a procedure to turn him, and I was looking into it, and I just thought the more I read about it and heard about it, I was kind of conflicted, because then they sent me this NHS video, which was very much like interviewing this couple, and they were like, yes, the last resort for us would have been a C-section. And I'm going, why is a C-section so bad? Hang on, like, is it that bad? Why what have I missed? I don't, okay, should I be panicking about that now or what? I thought that, it's like my brain, because hormones, everything else, your brain goes into one. But then there was something in my gut which said, don't do it. And I think it was kind of this, things could go wrong. It could induce early labour, and I just thought, I don't think this is worth it, and I don't think he'd stay there anyway. And I just thought, he's got himself into that position. He's comfortable. I'll leave him there. And I wasn't fazed by a C-section. I don't know why. Maybe and if we have another one, I will actively choose a C-section. So
it's so funny you say that, because we were in the almost same position. George was breech right up until the last week and a half, 2 weeks.
Oh, wow! So you were close.
Really close. So we went to what they called our last kind of appointment to determine if you're going to have a C-section or not. So right up until that week, we were thinking. We were kind of gearing ourselves to have a C-section, and then we were thinking of then the positives of that. The date, it'll be painless. It's more chilled. So like yourself, we were offered, and Emily said, said no, because it can be painful for mum. It's not guaranteed. I mean, my mum told me a story that my nan had the procedure, and then when she was waiting at the bus stop, pregnant, flipped back. So it doesn't always work. So we were kind of like, no, as you said, he's comfortable. He's there. He must have put himself there because he's comfortable. So yeah, for the same reason. But in the end, he ended up flipping.
Wow, oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know you had a little breach even until the last minute. Oh wow, cool.
Right up until
what a mind screw as well for Emily to try and get her head around what she's, well, and for you as well, of course. But it's kind of like when she's got to push him out, it's kind of like what's going to happen. That's and it's such different experiences. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I've sort of I know that you can try to have you know, I hate the word natural birth, but a natural birth again afterwards. But that everything froze for a second. Sorry, it was me.
Are we back? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm all right. Yeah, that's all right. It's probably just me. So yeah, I know you can try for a natural birth after having a C-section. But again, one person just told me a story that I will never get out of my head now, and I just think it's not worth it. So I'm just and our experience was so lovely that I know some people can be put off having more children because of having terrible birth experiences, and that was another thing that was in my head. And so yeah, I mean, everything was organized and planned, and they were getting us to put a playlist on, and I'm being like, I've got my little boy in my arms, I'm being sewn up, and everyone's singing, and like I was like, what's going on? But it was lovely. It was such a sort of euphoric moment, because I was like, okay, all my guts are probably hanging out right now, and they're sort of sewing me back together. But everyone's singing, the surgeon's singing, the assistant's singing, there's music on. I got that. It was lovely. It was so surreal but wonderful and just lovely. So I think, why would I opt for anything else? I know it's major surgery, I know it's dangerous. In some respects it comes with all those things, but then, you know.
Yeah, but I think it's more dangerous to try and deliver breech than to have the C-section. So
right.
So do you remember then what song from your playlist was playing at the time Joel was born?
I think it was Coldplay, Higher Power.
What a song like, to come into the world.
I know, like, you've got a higher power. I was like, okay, child, what are you going to bring me? It was just lovely. It was so nice, because everyone was singing along, and it was just so much fun. It was brilliant. It was really cool.
That's such a good tune as well.
Yeah.
I remember though, when George was born, my dad said, "You're gonna cry," and my brother said, "You're gonna cry." I'm like, "Yeah, I probably will," but I proper ugly cried, Hannah, like a real ugly cry.
That picture of you posted a picture which I thought was so adorable, and I loved that you posted that, because that epitomised that moment for me. I was like, that is such a lovely thing, and I'm sure loads of people on here that have got kids as well are going to be like, yeah, all the dads are going to be like, yeah, that was me. Yeah, there's such a gorgeous picture, because there's so much emotion, and it's so much in that one picture. I thought that was so lovely.
Oh, thank you.
And so good of you to post as well. I thought that was really nice, because sometimes you never know how much of your emotions to share, you know, publicly like that. But I was like, that is such a lovely photo. That says it all. So it was lovely.
It is really one of my favorite. But I was in that moment, I was so overwhelmed, because Emily and I wanted to do skin on skin, and when I sat down, they handed me George, but because I was just so overwhelmed that he was like, I was cautious that he was really warm on me, like, and I was like, I was sweating. I was like, am I making him hot? I'm like, I feel like he's slipping down. Like, I didn't feel confident, because he was so small to like pick him up to like. I was worried, are his legs being squashed? So I was so overwhelmed in that moment that I appreciated it, but I was just all these questions. But now you can handle him, but when you see the midwives, like, it feels like they're handling them quite fiercely. It's like, oh god. Yeah. But then my brother said, you wait till you have your second. And then you'll just be throwing them around.
I was just going to say, I'm sure by the time if you have another one, I'm sure that, you know, you realise that they don't break. And you know, and I do remember that one of the midwives saying to me, "Have you seen a forceps birth?" like, and how they come out, etc. She's like, you're not gonna hurt them. So she said they're designed to bend and squidge, and you know, like
That's
everything's designed to be bendy and all of that.
That is a good point. That is a good point.
So how are you finding it? Like, because you've gone back to work, right? I think I've seen you've done some weddings, right?
Yes, I've done about 4 weddings now. So the first wedding I did was 2 weeks after George was born, and I was so nervous before that job. I was nervous to leave Emily and George, but also I was nervous about how tired I would be. Like, because it's not just it's not a commercial headshot that could be done in a couple of hours. It's obviously a full-on day. So I was worried because of that job itself, how I was going to be. Luckily, George did have a fairly good night's sleep, but it was so weird going to work. Like, I'm a dad. But the bride had followed me on Instagram, and the first thing she showed was, how's George?
Oh,
which is so lovely.
Oh, that's nice. That's lovely.
So going back to work was very strange, but I feel occasionally. So Emily's parents don't live too far away, so I feel much more happier and more comfortable knowing that they're not far away if
close,
she needs to. But
definitely, yeah.
But you obviously you're back to work. So go. So can you remember kind of the first time you went back to work? How did you kind of prep for that? Because obviously as a self-employed. There's not kind of what's the word, like maternity pay. So
there ain't no maternity pay, my friend.
So it must be so difficult for women, self-employed women, coming back to work. Like, how soon did you return back to work?
So it was a tricky one for me because well, you can get statutory maternity pay. However, I haven't received a penny, and I'm still going to, because my accountant said what was hard is because I didn't know how long I was going to be off for, and therefore that you can either be in a position where you then have to repay it at the end of the tax year, or you can apply for it at the end of the tax year based on when you've worked and what you've done. So I ended up, because of COVID, I ended up stopping work quite early. I stopped in the middle of August, and I had him on the 24th of September. But it felt like it was the right time to stop. I was getting bigger and bigger and finding everything more difficult. And I was like, I at this point, I didn't have the vaccine until I was 37 weeks pregnant. And it was getting more and more dangerous. So I was like, okay, I need to probably stop and shield, which I'm glad I did. But that meant I wasn't working for all of those weeks before. And then, of course, it's what do you do afterwards? But weirdly, I had a customer that had contacted me from who I'd photographed when I had my first studio. I think the girl was kind of 2 or something when last time I photographed her, and she's now 16. And I was like, whoa.
Wow.
So she randomly got in touch and wanted me to do some photos, and I'd sort of said to her, yeah, sure, but I'm going to be off and I don't really know how long for. And she was super nice. She said, well, how do you want to handle it? Do you want to sort of book something in for when you think you'll be back, and then you can just cancel on us anytime, even the same day? And because I knew them, I felt more comfortable booking in previous clients that I knew on a more of a personal level, because it just felt a bit more comfortable. And they're obviously, they have children of their own. They're really sympathetic. They understand how it is. So I actually went back to work I went back for just one shoot, and I went back at 7 weeks afterwards. So because I'd had my 6-week checkup of all clear to go back to work after the C-section, and then the following Saturday I was in shooting, and Knut's mum was over from Norway. This is the problem for us, is that I most people know, but I lost my mum in 2020, and that has been very hard because there's a big hole. There is a hole, but at the same time, I don't know any different. So it's not like I've had a baby and then miss her. I just don't know any different. I just know that she's not there. And my dad is wonderful and fantastic, and he helps us in so many other ways. But it's not quite the same as I wouldn't leave Joel with my dad all day, kind of. He's 70 and he still works, and it's different to giving a baby. I imagine I would have given him to my mum with no problem. And then Knut's parents are in Norway, so we're on our own pretty much. We don't really have any support or anything like that. But Knut's mum was over, and they came in with me, and they took Joel for a walk while I was shooting. And but the problem, I do remember hearing him cry, because they were taking him back to the car, and I heard him crying like all the way. I was up in the studio upstairs, and that feeling was like, because I didn't know what to do, because every part of me just wanted to sort of run down to my boy. And my customers were great. They were kind of like, do you want to go? Do you want to go? You know, and I was like, no, I'm sure he's fine. He's probably just tired, or, you know. And I was like, they'll call me if they need me, or they'll bring him up if they need me. But that kind of initial, oh man, am I ever going to be able to do this feeling, it was quite overwhelming. But what I've done now is I'm only working 3 days a week. I'm only shooting 3 days a week. So I go in and I try to stack my shoots up back to back as much as possible. I say I'm only in the studio 3 days a week. Occasionally I might go out to someone's premises or something like that, as well. But it works out quite well because Knut can have him, and I know he's at home, because over the winter months, of course, it's like, he comes to work sometimes as well. I mean, I'll tell you about that in a minute, but the rest of the time I know he's at home with his daddy in the warmth. He's got everything that he needs, and Knut does such an amazing job. He's such a hands-on dad that I don't have any major concerns. It's a lot easier now. I'm not breastfeeding anymore as well, so that's less of a demand. But yeah, I had mornings where I would sort of get up at the crack of dawn and be running around the house, kind of like trying to express and clean everything up and get it all lined up for him. And I've got like my hair screwed back and I'm trying to get dressed and can't dress properly because I'm still expressing. And, I was like, what am I doing? I'm like, this is madness. But I made it work. It was weird, but always driving away to the studio. And I still get it now. When I drive away and I drive to work, it's a horrible feeling. I don't like it. But it's necessary. Like, this is the thing, is that you're right. When you're self-employed, there is no one to help you, and your business. I mean, I'm amazed at how many customers have been so supportive to say, we'll come back. Like, when you're back, let us know.
That's so good.
Be there. So, I wasn't expecting that. I thought a part of my head was like, am I ever going to have any customers again? Are they going to all just go somewhere else or not need me anymore? And no, they were wonderful. So that's been a huge help, definitely. But for you, doing a wedding is so much responsibility and needs so much of your brain. And oh man, you can't screw that one up. So I credit to you for taking that on. That's huge.
It was I've just done a double wedding, so I needed to be away overnight. So last weekend was the first overnight away from George again. That was so tough. That was really tough. But I had to stay because it was just too far away. And for people that follow me, they know I shoot both weddings and portraits. So I've not done any portrait work until this week, actually. I've only been doing weddings because it's obviously something that can't really be postponed, rescheduled. But yeah, it's been difficult, but it does get easier as the days progressing, and it's Emily's having confidence. I'm more worried than Emily is, even though Emily's the one at home. But there's another level of anxiety of even just like going to work. I feel guilty for going to work this early. Like,
I know, guilt. So, whatever you do, whether you feel guilty for not working, you feel guilty for working, you feel, that is the one thing that I have not. I can fully confess I have not got the balance right yet, Tommy, at all. And I think many people probably haven't either. And I found it so tough because I just found it really difficult, because I was like, I feel guilty for being away, but then if I don't work, I feel guilty that I'm not bringing money in, and like, oh man.
Right.
But I mean, what I was going to say to you, Tommy, is how, with these weddings that you had, were these booked? How do you do this? Because people book you so far in advance. How do you? Because then you've got to plan having a baby around that. How do you do that?
So So our due dates so happened to fall on a so it was born on the 14th of April, and it just so happened that the closest wedding I had was the 7th, and I didn't have one until 2 weeks after, and I thought there is a chance he could be early, so I for the wedding on the 7th, I purposely had booked a friend to shoot it right up until the time. So I'd put things into place. So usually I've got a few second shooters that I usually use that come along. So I had booked them basically on all the jobs in April, in case he came. And I'd spoke to brides and grooms, and they were cool with it. I was going to edit it, but yeah, you're right. If it had been any kind of closer to those dates, it would have been very problematic. But as it turned out, I didn't have to send a second shooter to any of those. It just so happened. I mean, if it had been midsummer, it may have been a very different story. It was just on the edge of peak season, so yeah, it could have been worse.
That's exactly why I don't do weddings. I hate signing my life away that far in advance. Yeah, it's awful. But that's it's really interesting. I've just seen that Andy said here it's difficult as a wedding photographer being away from your baby, not only because you want to spend time with them, but you really want to help your other half out so much. Andy's got I think Andy's got a little girl, yeah, beautiful little girl. But I mean, yeah, this is the thing: is that what do you do, because you sort of feel like you've got these commitments and you need to do them, but you feel bad the whole time. I'm saying to Knut, I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm coming to commitment. I'm coming now, I'm leaving now. He's like, just stop. He was like, we're fine, we're having a great time. Stop just freaking out.
I sound exactly like you, Hannah, because well, at the moment, Emily, I think I feel more guilty because Emily's still breastfeeding, and at the moment she's pretty much glued to the sofa. So I feel guilty for not being there, helping out, or so it is a difficult balance. It really is. But
it's hard for you though. I think it's hard for men. Sorry to interrupt you, but I think it's hard for men when it comes to breastfeeding, because they're literally. I mean, I totally get that you want to help, and there's only so much that you can do as well. It is our choice to do this, and it does mean that you sacrifice a lot of yourself. It's very draining. It's exhausting. All of these things, and we know that you want to help, but at the same time, you literally can't unless you express. There's not really anything that you can do. So that then puts you in a very weird situation as well, because you want to help but you can't. But so that's probably, I'd never really thought about that, because there's me. I am the one feeding, and so I make sure there's enough, and then I go. But for you, you're in this kind of want to help, can't help, don't know how to help. What shall I do? It must be very difficult actually for the guys.
Yeah, what I try and do is after George is fed, that's when I can step up and I do the burps, and then because of that, king burp right here, burp, and then I get the cuddles afterwards. So that's kind of and I set up the and for wannabe dads or not upcoming dads, like prepare a breastfeeding station. That's what I used to do. So 100%. have the snacks on the go, and like have the remote control, and make sure she's got plenty of water and juice and all that stuff. So if anyone is listening, if you're already a parent, like how did you like Krish, I know that you're watching, and you've got children. Like how was your setup as a dad? And if you're a mum, also what was your setup? So if you are listening, sorry we've not paid attention. I've just been so engrossed in this chat. But if you are listening, we are still looking at the comments, and if you do want to chirp up, then we are looking at the comments. So but Andy, you are so true. It is difficult. It is very much so. Barry said lots of guilt and second guessing as a new parent for sure, but the inspiration and motivation that they give you is second to none, and that is so true. And I guess it's a learning curve, and it's a big adjustment. So I'm still trying to get my head around it. Though I think we're going to potentially look at the bottle in a couple of weeks' time. I think Emily really wants to make sure that he's a established, not what is established, like fully got the latch to
Yeah.
before we start introducing the bottle. I've actually gone to the extent there's a special teat that you can buy that's supposed to emulate the breast, so it's like a filter inside, so that they have to work basically for the milk, so it doesn't just kind of throw down their throat. So we'll give that a go. Hopefully that'll work.
Go for it. I mean, this is the thing. I think Joel's just a gannet. He just drinks anything. So we didn't have any problems whatsoever. It was just like, give me the food now. That's kind of how he is. However, he's terrible at weaning. He just puts stuff in his mouth, and he's just like, I've been trying for weeks to get this child to eat solids, and he just spits it out. He's like, what is this? He's like, yeah, and just spits it all out again. I'm like, and of course, you try it initially, I tried to do all the right things. I was like, okay, yeah, I'll feed in the vegetables first, because people say, feed them the vegetables so they don't develop a sweet tooth. And I did this. And I thought, to be fair, I wouldn't eat cold broccoli. I wouldn't eat cold sweet potato. So, and no wonder he's putting a face. He literally gagged. I tried to give him sweet potato, and he just was like, I tried not to laugh, because I was like, to be fair, mate, I would probably do the same thing. But no, the nearest we've got so far is porridge. So, I mean, but again, it's just like a mouthful, spits it out. And I spoke to a dietitian yesterday, because I mean, he's got a cow's milk allergy as well. Let's not go into that. But and I just said to her, I was like, at what point should I worry about this? She's like, don't. She said, all of them are different. She said, they'll get there eventually. I was like, I don't want him to be 12 and still spitting porridge out of the table. Because I was just amazed, because he loves food. He has no patience for food. Like, he's one of these, the only time that he will scream is when he needs food, just like his father. There's nothing. You're okay, you're fine, you're fine. Feed me. And then it's like everything breaks loose. So I thought, he's going to love solids. He's going to love having a bit more substantial. Nope, no chance. So I don't know.
I thought I've been thinking that exact same thing. So maybe that won't be the case then when we do come to weaning, because George, like you said, peaceful. Screams, I want food right now. That is George.
I don't know whether this is a boy thing. I'm not sure.
Maybe it is a boy thing.
I think Andy's got a little girl. Has anyone else got a little girl? Tell us if that's the same, because I wonder whether it's a boy thing that they just scream when they really want food. Or I don't know. We'll see. It's interesting. It's nice questions, comments coming in here.
Yeah, Chris says, my youngest are identical twins. Oh, bless you, man.
Oh, man.
So it was like bath time and bottle feeding times 2. I had to bottle feed as well as just give the missus a break. Then up every day at Carmarthen cameras or meeting clients and brands. 5 years has flown. I can imagine, man. Oh, kudos to you for twins. Kudos to you.
Yeah, I know. Isn't it funny when you sort of like, you're dealing with one, you think, wow, how do people deal with 2? I guess you got no choice, have you? But
right?
Wow, that's unbelievable.
Darren says, liquidize a portion of food you eat yourself and feed it to your babies.
Yeah, I'm going to try that, Darren, actually, because I'm not sure about this. I mean, it's supposed to be, organic with nothing in it and all of this. But, I mean, it does look, I mean, I've tasted them. They don't taste great, do they? And like, to be fair, if you do just mash, liquidize something that you're eating, because he was staring at my pizza tonight, like with intent. And it's like looking at every mouthful. I was like, well, I can't probably liquidize a pizza, but something else I could give it a go for sure. That's funny. What else is that? Clark said in here, what works for one child won't necessarily work for the second. No, Clark, don't tell us this. Lie to us. Tell us it's all going to be great, because we'll never have any more.
My sister-in-law says, are you gonna have another one? Like,
great time to ask 4 weeks old.
I know. Let me kind of find my feet first.
Oh gosh! Wow! Look at this. Barry says they say by the 3rd it's so much easier. Oh wow! The third, blimey! You got to get me around the 2nd. Oh wow!
For those of you that are still watching, we've got about 10 minutes to go. But if you have also any tips, if you're more established parents, if you've got like a one golden piece of advice that you can give the viewers watching now, what would that be? Do let us know. We'd love to know. But Hannah, so in the 8 months that you've had Joel, have you had any kind of big learning curves becoming a parent, like something you didn't foresee before, or or is it maybe something to do with work? Like, do you find that you just have to manage your time better, or have you always been good at that anyway? What's kind of been some or one of the bigger learning curves you've had since having Joel?
That's a good question, Tommy. I'll be very honest about this. So, I had postnatal anxiety, which was not. I've not. Before having a baby, I wasn't anxious about anything at all. I was so laid back about everything. It was never anything that sort of crossed my mind. However, we think how it started was making the decision of whether to have the vaccine or not when pregnant and COVID, and whichever choice you made was going to be a bad one. It felt like at the time. This is, because the advice changed 4 times when I was pregnant, so I didn't know what to do, and therefore I was very wound up, scared a lot of the time of what I did and how much I exposed myself, how ill could I make myself, how not, and a lot of that happened. But yeah, I didn't. Well, they initially thought, because they do a questionnaire with you to find out how you're feeling, and they were saying you're scoring pretty high on the anxiety levels. I was like, am I? Okay, that's fine. What do we do about that? And then they ended up giving me some sessions with a psychologist, and what was really interesting, she actually discharged me after 2, because she said that, to be fair, everything that you're worried about or you're feeling anxious about is anything any new mum or new parent would. It's just, unfortunately, she said, what I'm quite angry about is the process or how you've reached this. We've gone through we had a lot of problems with him when he was first born. He had jaundice, he had tongue tie, and a cow's milk allergy.
Oh, bless him.
Advice was all conflicted. He was underweight for ages. They were obsessed with weighing him. He's now on a prescribed hypoallergenic formula. But it took us a while to get there. So it was, there was a lot of things, but the health visitor would sort of say things that weren't very helpful, that made me really kind of worried and anxious. And then you'd speak to a midwife that would kind of like undo all of that. And conflicting advice kind of led me to a point where, because you've not done this before, you're not confident in your own choices. So you're trying to listen to other people. Then they are fighting amongst them. I had one instance where a feeding specialist, a paediatrician, and a health visitor all were fighting against each other. And I'm like, well, if you lot are fighting, what am I supposed to do sat over here? Can somebody just tell me what to do? Because, and they just started to say things. She said, the health visitor said, we are worried about him. I'm like, well, that really helps. And at the same time, in the same breath, she'd say, you need to stay relaxed, because when you're relaxed, you produce all the love hormones, the oxytocin, and that will help and everything. I'm like, you've just told me you're worried about my child and his development. Like, what? And then the paediatrician found out. She went mental because they'd said that. So my story and my journey was a little bit weird, in that they kind of put me in the box of anxiety, which I definitely felt very, very anxious about certain things.
Well, it's unsurprising with all that conflicting opinion from so be it professionals.
Right. This was the problem, is that the health professionals were not agreeing, and no. It led me down a bit of a weird path of not knowing what to do, and therefore feeling like every decision I made, I second guess. And so I think someone else just said this about second guessing down here. But yeah, you question what you're doing. So that didn't put me in the best place. But I've, weirdly, when my hormones settled down again, I sort of managed to overcome that. And and actually going back to work sort of helped me realize that I am a capable, organized person. When things go wrong, I know what to do. I will go and ask for help, and I can take control of the situation. So going back to work sort of reminded me who I was in a weird sort of way. I was kind of like, oh yes, no, I can run a business. I can organize things. I can ask people for help. I can do this. It kind of brought me some confidence back again. So I suppose my learning curve has been how much in my job and our careers sort of, do help our confidence and establish who we are, and how we feel about ourselves maybe, and where our role is in life. And then suddenly I felt much more capable when I was going back to work and running things again. I was like, yeah, no, I'm his mum. I can make decisions. I can do this. I'm his mum. I know him best. And I felt more empowered to make those decisions. Whereas before, when I'd been off and been at home and didn't know which way was up and all this weird advice, I was like, I just was kind of bouncing around all these people, not really knowing which way to turn. So actually, going back to work, getting a bit of a routine, getting a bit of structure, sort of reminded me that actually it just gave me my confidence back again, really. So as much as I thought I love the days where I'm at home and I'm just mummy. I love that. But now I try to incorporate both, and even times we've brought him to work and people love him, and that's been a big shock for me. I thought people wouldn't want babies around and all of this, and I took him to my accountants when I was doing all their headshots. I was like, "Where's my baby?" Because like everyone was like, "Oh, grab a cuddle," I was like, "What's happening?" And they're like, "Oh, you're going to bring the baby next time, when you come back again." I'm like, okay, he was like a secret weapon that everybody that came in was like, "Oh, there's a baby," and suddenly they had gone out of being scared of having their photo taken, and we're all in this. It was weird. I wasn't quite prepared for that.
That's a good tactic to get them to relax. Though I don't know if bringing George to a wedding day might be the same thing. But
yeah, it might be a bit rough.
Can you imagine? I'll just have him in the carrier right here while I'm photographing her. Everyone look at George.
Look at the baby.
Yeah.
Do you know what? It might work, Tommy. You never know. Put him in your baby, Bjorn. You'll be all right.
Never know. It very much might work. We've had a few comments in when asking people about their advice or their tips, and Andy said Sienna is 16 months now and she's at the point where personality is coming through. She enjoys being with me and my wife, but the time has gone so quick. So my tip is to enjoy every second. And Darren said the best advice I can offer as a dad is to remember to enjoy and treasure each significant moment, such as the crawling, gurgling and first word, etc. And follow your heart's gut feelings and make your own decisions as parents. Nobody knows your child better than you. Exactly what you said. It sounds like you, when you were able to get back to a routine, you were able to shift that anxiety, not because of those professionals, but in spite of those healthcare professionals.
Yeah, totally. I don't want it to sound like I'm sort of blaming people for it as well. It wasn't. It's not that. It's just kind of. It's just interesting that it's probably a perfect storm of hormones, conflicting advice, and kind of all those sorts of things that led me there. But yeah, but no, it's good. It's all good. What about you? What's been your big learning curve since having George?
Oh my God, I feel like I've learned so much just general skills. I mean, it's not so much advice, but just before I get there, just lots of little things, because I've had nieces, but I've not had to look after them 24/7 or had to really change the nappy. So I think for one of the biggest hurdles at the moment I'm currently trying to get over is I've got a real thing about George crying, and I think it's from when I was younger. So when my sister was born, so I obviously don't remember my older brothers, but my younger sister, when she was a toddler, when she would cry, it would affect me so much that I would cry, and it would really upset me because I'm like, I kept saying, "Mummy, she sounds like she's in pain," and obviously they're not. It's just their thing. I remember actually a story where I was in Primark with Mum and Cassie was starting to cry. And I knew it was going to upset me, so I just ran away and got lost.
Mum, she's like, "Oh my God, I've lost one child, the other one's crying."
One's crying, one's ran away, and so they had to do the thing when I had to do the tannoy. Can Mrs. Reynolds please come to the tills, please?
Oh, bless. Oh, that's so sweet. Does Cassie really make the most of this now? Does she play on it now?
Oh, of course she does. Of course she does.
She might.
Of course she does. But it is something that does give me anxiety. For sure, is when George really cries, because I can't help but.
Is it panic? What happens? Does it make you worry, or are you worried of what's wrong with him, or is it just something you can't really describe? Is it just I'm anxious. I'm worried. Like, what if he doesn't stop crying? We've gone through our kind of checklist of we fed him, we've burped him, it's clean nappy, and so it just gives me anxiety. It's like it's an undescribable feeling. It's to the point where it makes me cry, and sometimes I have to pass George over to Emily because I need a moment, because it just affects me so much. So that's
not
totally.
not so much advice, but that's been for being honest, like one of the biggest things that's trying to help me get over. But I mean, as other people have said, it's just to enjoy every moment. And what Andy also said, which has got to be the best advice for you and I, is take lots of photos, as Andy said. Which, by the way, I had to update my iCloud in the first week, iCloud storage, because I did take quite a few.
I know. No, it's so true. It's so true. I think, I totally get that, Tommy. And the thing is that the cry of a newborn it's so, it doesn't, it's not, they do sound very distressed, and, you know, it's overwhelming. It is quite a lot to take. And, I totally get that, because I think the thing is it's the frustration sometimes of when they're crying and you don't know what they want, and you like you say, you go through a checklist and you just think, I feel helpless. It's probably an element of you kind of feeling like, I don't know what else to try, I don't know what else to do, and how's this gonna, you know, is he gonna stop? Is that you just don't really know, because it's all new, isn't it? And then I remember someone saying to me that you'll start to learn their cries. They get different cries for different things. I thought, what? Oh, really? True. You know,
No,
like actually true.
We're at that stage. I feel like we're at that stage. We can kind of recognize in those subtle cues. It's like I don't think he's hungry. I think he might need another burp. It's so weird.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
But no, totally, and very, very good of you to be honest. You know, that's the thing. I think we're all honest. You know, none of us have got it right, have we? You know, we're all just figuring it out as we go along. And, you know, some of us end up, you know, feeling more anxious than others, and it comes and goes. And yeah, I mean, like I don't think anyone's just been like, oh yeah, this parenting lark, I've had that down, no problem.
Yeah.
You know, no one has ever said that ever, or if they have, they're lying.
Oh, 100%. No, it is funny how you start to hear a lot of the same advice about, you know, just cherish it, enjoy it, and or go with the flow, because no one ever has it figured out. Everyone's different, every child's different, and you just gotta do what's right for you. I think that was that is the one piece of advice that I did take from a midwife, was that, and like, or with regards to, you know, feeding as well. It's like, it doesn't matter if it's breast milk, if it's this, as long as they're fed, as long as they're happy, they're warm, they're fine. Doesn't matter all these conflicting, like, oh no, breast is best and all this stuff. So
yeah. I mean, fed is best, isn't it? Ultimately,
fed is best. Yeah, I like that. That's much better. Yeah.
I mean, a fed baby is what everybody wants, and you know, it's hard. I mean, breastfeeding, I found the most painful thing. Having a C-section, being cut in half, you know, going through your muscles, going through everything else, nerve damage, everything else. That's nothing. That was a breeze. Breastfeeding with a baby that's got tongue tie. The worst pain I've ever felt in my life, mate. But I carried on. I was determined. That's where me being a stubborn cow really came into its own. Because, you know, I fed him till he was 6 months. But, bleeding and everything else. You're like, oh, this is fine.
Yeah.
It wasn't.
The amount of nipple cream we've gone through it's gold dust in this house.
Your body just, I mean, it is so funny. You know, you kind of, your body, you do look at it in a different way. But you're kind of like, whoa. Yeah, that's not the same, is it? Never going to be the same again. Never mind. But what you get out of it, and then I still have these moments where I look at him and go, I made you.
Yeah,
like, what? Like, what is this madness? You know, it's incredible.
No, Emily says that. She says, like, can you believe we produced him?
Look,
we produced him.
We made him, and he grew in my belly. What? You know, that is madness. Absolutely incredible when you think about it like that. It's amazing.
Oh, Hannah, this has been such a lovely conversation. We've just got a couple more comments I'm going to put up on screen before we end. Andy again said, one piece of advice someone told us was, everything is a phase, and it really seems to be true. Lots of crying or not sleeping will change. So that's very true. Yeah, yay. Good. Oh, good.
It's got the bags under the eyes. They're going to be there. I feel like I've aged. Like, I don't know how many years in this last year.
I wasn't grey when we last saw each other.
No, that's true. Actually, no, you were I don't know, maybe a little bit. But yeah, I mean, enjoying the club, mate. Yeah, exactly. It's lovely. It's really draining on a parent when there's continuous crying. But again, the best advice I can offer is to try to just be there for each other and to help to try and comfort your baby. Emily really suffered really badly with reflux. Oh, don't even reflux. as a baby, and I remember sitting up all night, literally. Oh, Darren, yes, reflux. Having to sit up for half an hour afterwards, keep them upright, and it's 3 a.m, and you were up an hour and a half ago, and you're doing it again, and your eyes are like, jeez, you don't really know what you're made of until you have a baby, do you? Really, you're like, no, I can stay awake all night.
Yes. Yeah. You do not know sleep deprivation, and it's no joke. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. That's
the reason they use it as torture.
Right? Yeah. Or even you watch that SAS Who Dares Wins, and when they get to that last stage with the headphones, and they've got crying, like baby crying. Oh my God, that would finish me.
Yeah, that's it. Broken. Yeah. So good.
Well, so I think so. To sum up, none of us have it figured out, and that's okay.
Yes, exactly. And I always think to myself, I'm like, well, people have had babies for generations and generations, and like, I guess we all turn out all right in the end, somewhat.
Yeah. Our parents coped fine with all these Tommy Tippy paraphernalia.
Yeah, exactly. I know. I mean, however, some of the advice that some people sort of say, I'm like, yeah, you did have us nearly 40 years ago. Less so for you, Tommy, I know. But I'm like, I think the advice has changed over those 40 years.
Yes.
They learned a little bit. But it's fun. It'll change again. Good.
Oh, Hannah. Well, so if people want to find out, see more of your work, where can they go? Where can they go to find you?
Probably the best place, the most active I am, even though when I say active, I feel like I don't post anything anymore. But no, I do. The place to find me probably daily-ish is my Instagram, which is, it's a long one. It's Hannah Couzens Photography. But Couzens is spelled so Hannah is the same backwards, HANNAH, because a lot of people miss off the H. And then Couzens is COUZENS. Right? It's French. Photography. So Hannah Couzens Photography. I am on Instagram, or just Google that and you'll find me somewhere, and find my website and all that kind of stuff. So, or I'm sure you'll find me. I mean, Tommy and I are connected in many ways through all the social medias and stuff. So yeah, so probably through one or the other.
Fabulous. Anna, thank you so much for coming along and doing a very different live stream. I'm sure you've been requested for it in the past, but thank you for giving me advice. You've given me advice, and hopefully you've given other people advice listening. So thank you so much for joining me, and hopefully we'll see each other at some point face to face, if not this year. At some point.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Tommy. When you asked me to do it, I was like, what a great thing to do. That would be really lovely. And I've been wanting to speak to you anyway since George came, and see how you're getting on. So that's been lovely. But hopefully I'll see you and everybody else in September, a photography show. I guess that will be a thing again, maybe, if we all get there. Then hopefully. Maybe we'll see you there. That'd be good.
Fingers crossed, though. I remember that's the last thing we said to each other on the social distancing video. Maybe I'll see you in September, and that didn't. So fingers crossed. Touch wood. That one. It's okay. Touch wood. It's going to happen now. It's going to happen.
We'll be there.
All right, Hannah. I will speak to you soon. Take care.